I was always a new kid in school. Because my father was a banker, we constantly moved from city to city. In Japan, it's common to move bankers every 1 to 2 years, like chess pieces, to prevent embezzlement. Going to a school was always an adventure. Every school was different, but there was one thing in common for most elementary schools in Japan. Kids carry a ransel. The word came from Dutch ransel or German Raisin. It's a well-made leather backpack that's guaranteed to last 6 years. Usually, kids get one when they start elementary school, but I didn't because my first school didn't have any dress code. Some schools asked my parents to buy a ransel for me. No, it's a waste, my mother said. I was the only student in the school who didn't carry a ransel, which was fine with me. Who wants to carry the same bag for 6 years? Even kids need to spice it up from time to time, right? I was a crier when I was young. Also, I was a sick child. Asthma and allergy were killing me. My parents were fighting all the time. I cried every day. Life sucked. But eventually, I learned how to detach my emotions from myself. By the time I became 10, I stopped crying. Then, everything started making sense. Here's what I found. Meaning of life. I live because I can't kill myself. Kids, simple-minded creatures. They don't know what they don't know. Teachers, poor thing. They have to deal with those simple-minded creatures every single day. I don't know how they do that. A new kid in school, me, a rare animal in the zoo. Kids from other classes often take a tour to see me during a break. I felt like I knew it all, but there was one thing I couldn't figure out at one of the schools: bullying. It wasn't my first time witnessing bullying, but at the previous school, I understood the reason. The targeted kid was different in a way. He had a limp. Because kids are simple-minded creatures, they couldn't accept somebody who was different from them. But I couldn't understand this particular bullying. Kids were calling her germ. Germ sounds dirty and stinky, right? But she didn't smell. She looked normal. Everything about her was average. She was not skinny, fat, tall, or short. Her grade? I don't know. She was in a different class. But I assumed that it was average too. Her shoulder length was a little bit curved. That was the only uniqueness I could identify. So I couldn't understand where the germ came from. And bullies were not only from a particular group of kids, but more like the whole group, whole school. I observed the situation, but I still couldn't figure it out. So after a week, I asked my classmate, "Hey, why is everybody picking on her? She seems normal. What's the deal?" There was a moment of silence. Then she said, "Are you defending the germ? Are you germ's friend?" That moment, time stopped. I could feel the air became broken glass. The sharp edges were pointing at me. I became their target too. I was so amused. If I were a regular kid, I might have been scared or depressed, but I wasn't. I was a new kid who knew it all. I knew that the kids didn't hate me or the girl. They were just agreeing with somebody else said. Also, germ's friend? How original! Couldn't they be more creative? But I still wanted an answer. Then, after a week, a girl walked by and whispered to me, "Hey, you don't want to be friends with the germ. She's from Buraku." Did she say Buraku? I learned the subject in social studies. In the early 1600s, there were 4 main classes in society: scholars, farmers, artisans, and merchants. And the Japanese government created a lower class than them so that they could feel better about themselves and pay more taxes. The lower classes were not a racial or national minority, but more like a caste-like minority among Japanese. Mainly, they were executioners, butchers, and undertakers. And they were forced to live in certain areas. But the government ended the social class system in 1871. That's more than 100 years ago. Why are we still talking about it? I knew the subject was a big mistake in the first place. Nobody was born with a sense of discrimination. Schools and parents must have planted in kids' mind. I wasn't amused at all. I was annoyed. I didn't want to deal with any of that, so I ignored them all. Eventually, kids got bored and moved on, and I was back to being just a new kid. One day, I asked my mother, "Mom, what would you do if I get involved with somebody from Buraku?" "Miyo, I'm okay with whoever you pick, but if he's from Buraku, I will be concerned because your life will be challenging." I understand her concerns because I've seen and heard many breakups and rejections. Just imagine, you've been deeply in love with somebody for years. You two are ready to move on to the next level, possibly get married. Your skin color is the same as your partner. You two speak the same language. Your dialect, hobbies, interests, everything matched. You feel like you found a soulmate. Nothing will break you apart. But as soon as your partner finds out you are from Buraku, your years of love are gone instantly. Your personality, income, job, intelligence, nothing matters. They never talk to you. They reject you. Remember, nothing has changed on your end. You are the same person all the time. But your hometown, your parents' hometown, can turn your life upside down. You lose your jobs, friends, because of that. Now, schools don't teach the Black theory anymore. After researchers argued about the accuracy and its source, it was removed from the history book in 2005. But removal doesn't change the history of discrimination. There was a book that contains a nationwide list of all the names and locations about the outcasts. It was sold between $50 to $500. Many companies ran background checks against the book. So did some parents. Now, the book is banned, and we can't even use the word Buraku on TV anymore. But no matter how hard we erase the history, the ugly truth is still underneath it. Back in 2009, Google Earth added historical maps of Japan to its online collection. The old maps pinpointed the outcast areas. One village in Tokyo was labeled as ETA, ETA. It's a strong derogatory word about outcasts, meaning filthy mass. With one single click, we could see where the current buildings and the areas were. In Japan, it's legal to print out such maps, but when we do, a historical explanation is expected to come with the publication, which Google didn't have. 2 years later, those areas disappeared from the maps. We don't have to forget about what happened in the past, but we need to acknowledge our mistakes and start writing a new chapter together. Even today, I wonder what I could have done differently. I didn't call her John, but I wasn't her friend either. What if I had extended my hand to her? I was in a position to change the situation because I was a new kid. Thank you.